Why can't I just do the laundry? A perceptual control perspective on neurodiversity. Hi, my name is Eva de Hullu and I'm an assistant professor at the Open University in the Netherlands. I'm proud to present to you my ideas about neurodiversity from a perceptual control perspective. Why can't I just do the laundry? This was a question posed by someone diagnosed with ADHD as he shared his quest to understand his difficulty in completing seemingly straightforward tasks, such as the laundry. The conventional response he got was, it has to do something with dopamine, but this failed to provide him with a satisfying explanation. So today I aim to shed light on the challenges that some of us encounter in daily life. Through the lens of PCT, perceptual control theory, I will explain how people can feel, think, perceive and act in diverse ways. This will show how easy tasks may become too complex to solve, while others, seemingly complex tasks, become easy, depending on how you try to control your perception. This framework offers an alternative to the disorder-centered mainstream view on ADHD, autism and other developmental disorders. The perspective I take will be rooted in neurodiversity. This is an approach that reframes developmental differences like autism and ADHD as natural variations rather than disorders. A good theory to explain neurodiversity is a necessary step in further developing this approach. Why are we similar and why are we different? Perceptual control theory is a theory with a great explanatory power, explaining how living organisms control their perception. So this is about humans and animals and all living things. And PCT explains similarities and differences in how we as organisms, as animals and as humans perceive, think, feel and act. So I will present to you my ideas as hypotheses. This is work in progress and I hope to inspire further research and collaboration. First, I need to explain a bit about perceptual control theory. Perceptual control theory was developed by Bill Powers, an engineer psychologist in the 1960s. At its core, PCT revolves around a control loop displayed here. And this model explains how living organisms maintain and create their own world through perceptual control. So it's essential to grasp that we control our own perception, our own experience, through continuous comparison of what we currently experience against what we want to experience. We act to decrease the difference, and this is control, having the experience you want. So for instance, while I record this presentation, I want to have a smooth experience, but of course this doesn't always work, and this is not the first take of this recording. So I have an image in my mind of how I want it to be, and I have an experience of it, how it actually turns out, and I want to get the difference between the two of them as small as I can. Another example, while I'm talking, if I fail, if I stutter, for example now, I can't find my word. So you will feel this slight annoyance, right? You want to have a smooth experience as well. And this is maybe a bit embarrassing. So that's the experience of error, right? This experience currently is not as you want it to be. Well, did you notice that right now while you're watching this? Half a century after its inception, PCT remains vibrant, as evidenced by our recent PCT handbook. Research into the theory spans fundamental inquiries into control, with simulations and robotics, but my own focus lies in its clinical applications in psychology, such as method of levels therapy and its power to explain mental health. There's a lot of science and detail behind this theory, which we explain in our recent handbook. The preface explains the theory and is open access, so I'd like to encourage you to read it. While not as widely recognized as some other theories, PCT aligns with system theories and even bears resemblance to the currently quite popular theory in neuroscience of predictive coding. While given the constraints of time, I will concentrate on the fundamental underpinnings within this theory for this presentation. PCT asserts that all behavior serves the control of perception. So we function as control systems. We are orchestrating our personal experiences within a hierarchical framework, and I will explain what it is. So we don't control just one thing, we control many things simultaneously at many levels. So here you see a diagram of how perceptual control systems are connected hierarchically. So each higher level controls its perception by setting a reference, our perception of how things should be, for the subordinate control systems. Bill Powers formulated 11 perceptual control levels, which account for all kinds of experiences. At the bottom you will find sensations like temperature and volume, as well as how we perceive and how we control our identities at the highest level. For instance, I control a perception of myself as a scientist. In this presentation I will focus on the highest levels, levels 7 to 10, to explain neurodiversity. I will now walk you through these levels to connect to neurodiverse experiences. So note that I will skip the lower levels, which explain how we start from a basic neural signal, for instance the pressure against your skin, through all these levels into something that happens to us with a meaning. I will begin with the level at which we start to organize the world into different categories. So category control is our mind's way of organizing perceptions that share properties into categories. It does so by clustering perceptions that share traits and making distinction between those perceptions and others. For example, sorting the laundry by color. So we do so in our mind when we sort stuff out, and also in our world when we organize the laundry. And in PCT this is all the same, because we control perception, and perception is all we have. So we don't make a distinction between inside and outside. We all use this level constantly and automatically. For instance, if I forget a word in English, I will find another word for within that category to regain control. So if I currently look around me, I see all kinds of things. I see books, I see utensils, I see machines, I see some, what is it? I have two different containers for drinks, right? So there are all kinds of categories. Categories are all over our perceptual world. So how can we differ in category perception? Let's see what category control looks like when it works very well. What if someone really relies on this level to bring order to their world? Well, you would see someone organizing, putting things in their proper place, having a need to categorize, to know where things belong. It's either this or that. But this reminds us of the symptoms of obsessive-compulsive disorder. Otherwise, what would impaired functioning at this level look like? If you can't categorize well, you will have trouble putting things into words, finding words, expressing yourself. It would be difficult to name complex things like emotions. You'll have this kind of vague feeling and hard to get the right word for it. And this would result in a perceptual world that is quite disorganized. And this reminds us of the experience of people with developmental language disorder. So, category control creates a lot of order in the world. It brings one kind of structure into categories, but it has no sense of where to go to, right? It lacks that kind of structure. So we need to go up one level to experience that kind of order. And sequence control orders combinations of underlying perceptions into sequences. 1, 2, 3, 4 is a sequence. First this, then that, then that. This sequence control creates order in space, in time, or in a process, and it provides predictability. So if you follow a sequence, you will be able to orientate, to predict, where you are and where you're heading. For example, following a clear path through the forest or a marked trail over the mountains, or knowing the schedule of a conference and knowing where you're heading next, or knowing that doing the laundry involves sorting, putting one pile in the machine, adding detergent, washing, waiting, hanging it out to dry. It's a clear sequence. Well, if sequence control is used predominantly, you would see someone who's really able to go with the flow, to be immersed in where he currently is until he is distracted by something else. This immediately reminds us of what ADHD looks like, both the hyperfocus and the lack of decision. If sequence control is impaired, you'd see how people have trouble organizing things in a particular order. For example, if one person told me that she never managed to learn multiplication tables properly. So without the ability to become immersed in a predictable sequence, you will get stuck easily, and you will have a hard time predicting what is next. This is common in dyslexia. So impaired functioning of sequence control might also result in other ways to try to gain control and make the world predictable, such as categorizing, which may look quite compulsive, or you could try to go a level up and organize through the higher levels that I will come to next. So sequence control makes life predictable, but unfortunately or fortunately life often isn't. So even when you're walking a nice trail out in nature, you might find yourself at a junction, right? This is where you need program control. This level controls programs, right? It controls the structure of tests and selection point across sequences. So you have a single sequence, you go into the woods, follow a trail, and there's a junction. And right at that junction, there's a selection point you need to make another decision. And these choices are made based on information from lower levels. And this could also be understood as planning and involve imagination and trial and error behavior. For example, when you're looking for your lost keys, you first look into your pockets. If they are not in your pockets, you might take a look in your purse, then check your coat, and if it's not there, you might take a look at the table, etc. So we use this level all the time. Thinking and talking is program control. Finding information is program control. We use this level whenever we encounter situations that are unclear and we need to make choices and to decide the next step. For example, choosing a washing machine program that's suitable for a specific kind of laundry, that's program control. So we all use this kind of control all the time. At the extremes, someone relying on program control looks like a very rational person, even might be called a control freak. They will need to know everything beforehand and check all the relevant decisions. They love structure, diagrams and ordered information. Well, this looks a lot like what we see in high-functioning autistic people. On the other hand, if this level is impaired, we might struggle with making decisions. We do not know what to do, we do not know what we want. Someone like that might lack initiative and show unstructured behavior, and this can be an aspect of ADHD. So even though we might admire control freaks who have everything organized, we also realize that not everything in life can be controlled. Especially when you deal with relationships and people, you will encounter many situations which are too complex to control in this way. That's why we have another way to control from the principle level. So level 10 in Power's model controls fuzzy concepts such as values, like what is important to you, safety or justice. The principle level controls our sense of meaning, what is important, what do you really want, why you do what you do. So to control at this level you use all your senses. You need to feel what is important to you. So in a washing machine example, if there's a big pile of laundry and I don't know what order is best because it all should have been done yesterday, I might resolve this through sighing deeply, taking a step back, and I start to feel like what's most important right now and just pick something that feels like I need it at the moment. Someone controlling mainly from this principle level will have a broad view on the world. They are operating from a high perspective. And this will be the person in your company who asks the bigger questions like, why are we here? They will be good at abstract thinking and sensitive to emotions and feelings and relationships. On the downside, if you use this level but you can't use program control very well, you might lack action and concrete plans and stay too vague. And these are traits we might recognize in gifted and highly sensitive people, and also in bipolar people when they have a high mood. On the other hand, impaired functioning at the principal level means that someone has no sense of priorities. They might have no idea what they really want. This can also mean that life makes no sense and has no purpose. This will show as a lack of motivation and a difficulty to make choices in complex situations, and it reminds us of what we see happening in depression and anxiety, which are also often associated with the neurodiverse profiles I mentioned in this talk. So what does this tell us about neurodiversity? We all control in many ways. Some of us have limitations at certain levels and strengths at other levels. And what we lack at one level, we try to compensate for at other levels, lower or higher, which explains the wide range of symptomatic behaviors and comorbidity and overlap between neurodiverse profiles. And this paints a picture of diversity and provides us with a non-judgmental language about ways in which we are similar and ways in which we are different. Well, this is a framework in development. I'm sure it holds promise, but it needs to be tested in many ways. So I need to research all these links in detail. And this is a summary of the links I showed you today. So now we know how Power's perceptual control theory can explain a variety of experiences across the spectrum. How do we explain what causes this diversity? Well, first we know how every human develops their perceptual hierarchy in the first years of their life. They develop all the levels, but some levels might be better developed than others, or development may be interrupted and limited at a certain moment. Franz Ploy studied how this works in normally developing children and wrote a highly popular guide for parents about it. Second, we know from autism research that autistic people often show superior local processing, which is at the lowest level of the hierarchy, and weak central coherence, less of a global and overall insight. So their high resolution of perceptual input at lower levels might mean that extra effort is needed at higher levels. Compare making a puzzle with 50 pieces compared to a puzzle of 1,000 pieces. It just takes more time to put it together. You might need to do some extra effort. Third, adverse life experiences and trauma might force us to develop strategies that hinder later perceptual control. So in the context of traumatic experience, we might develop survival goals that are necessary to cope with loss of control in that context. But if these goals persist, they can limit the operation of an entire level of perceptual control. For example, if you come from an unsafe and unpredictable family, you might have a firm belief that feelings can't be trusted, what's not rational doesn't count. And this will limit the operation of principal level control, which deals with complex situations through feeling what is important to you. Right? So this limitation will result in the need to rely on lower level control, for example in trying to get to know as much as possible and to make the right decisions and to make the situation as predictable as possible. Perfectionism has the same limiting result on the fuzzy operation of principal control. And other convictions and schemes limiting control are the idea that all conflict is bad. So if you want everything to be harmonious all the time, this will lead to avoidance of decisions, and this limits program control. So here are some other examples. So what makes the laundry so difficult? Doing the laundry is a complex task that requires all kinds of control actions on different levels. You will need to sort it, that's category control. You will need to take steps in a certain order. You need sorting, adding it to the machine, adding detergent, that's sequence control. And you will need to decide, that's program control, what's the best program for this kind of laundry. So you will need to know what's important in order to know what to do first among all the tasks at hand. That's principal control. So if any of these types of control are not easily available to the kind of mind you possess, you might stay stuck with the large pile of laundry and wonder, what is wrong with me. Well, I hope that in this presentation I've been able to sort a few things out and make them clear to you, and feel free to contact me at any time for questions and discussion.